listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from January 15th, 2024. Of course, we are heading near and we are heading closer to the Royal Rumble, which kicks off the road to WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. And it's safe to say WWE is building up to the Royal Rumble very, very, very well. They have that feeling of anything can happen at the Royal Rumble, and that is the feeling that they absolutely need for this show. Of course, we're going to be talking about Monday Night Raw. Overall thoughts on Raw. I enjoyed the show. I thought the show flowed very well for the 3 hours. Of course, you guys already know that I'm not a fan of the 3-hour format for Monday Night Raw. I always say this every time when I get on my Raw review, but the show has been flowing pretty well throughout the past couple of weeks, and this week was no different. Of course, we had a tremendous segment with the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and Drew McIntyre. Gunther, the Intercontinental Champion, made his return. Rhea Ripley, the current Women's World Champion, faced off against Becky Lynch, and it's safe to say that they already planted the seeds for their quote-unquote match that is possibly going to be happening this year at WrestleMania, because they already teased it, as well as Seth Freakin Rollins, the current World Heavyweight Champion, tries to hinder the Jinder. Of course, Tony Khan made Jinder Mahal turn babyface last week when he was going on a rampage, no pun intended, on social media, and everybody was quote-unquote hyped about this match that took place this week on Raw between Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal. We got no cash-in with Damian Priest, even though Damian Priest showed up, but it was a fine match, but I thought it was way too overhyped, and I'll be talking about that later on right here on the Raw review. But before we get into all this craziness regarding Monday Night Raw, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, follow me on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All right, let's get on with this Monday Night Raw post-show. Overall thoughts on the show. Again, I pretty much enjoyed the show for what it was. I thought it flowed very well. There was a couple nitpicks on the show, but nonetheless, overall, I thought it was a great show. The show kicks off with the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Yes, Cody Rhodes kicks off the show, and he's, of course, one of the favorites to win this year's Royal Rumble, of course, for a second time in a row. Of course, he cuts his promo, and he says, "So, Little Rock, what do you want to talk about?" Oh, and by the way, Raw had a semi-new setup, and I'm not going to lie, I actually prefer this setup over the previous setup. It's a very minor setup, but they had a lot of scaffolding, and I pretty much enjoyed it. But he says, what do you want to talk about too? Of course, Little Rock, Arkansas. He says, there's this little song about Little Rock. His wife loves that song, but we can talk about that song. We can talk about fighting and defeating Shinsuke Nakamura. Or we could talk about the reason why he is standing here, or the reason why he came back to WWE for. Of course, the Royal Rumble is right around the corner, and then Drew McIntyre's music plays. Drew McIntyre comes out, and he says, "So, Cody, what do you want to talk about?" He's been back for a minute, and they haven't had a chance to catch up. They grew up in WWE together. He wants to take this opportunity and tell him about how proud he is of him. He's proud of the man that he has become. But he couldn't think about when they were kids. Of course, they were tag team champions. Do you remember our tag team name? The Dashing Ones. Yes, they were a tag team, and they were tag team champions together. They were known as the Dashing Ones. And I believe this was 2010, correct me if I'm wrong, when, of course, Cody Rhodes was doing his Dashing Cody Rhodes gimmick. Oh, you remember that? That theme song is amazing. But, of course, The reason why they didn't go for, they talked about themselves as singles wrestlers. They didn't go far because they want to go as singles wrestlers. They saw themselves as singles wrestlers, and they needed to leave WWE to see things straight. But they weren't just any wrestlers outside of the WWE. They laid the blueprint of wrestling outside of WWE. Do you remember the last match he had before he returned to WWE? Of course, Drew McIntyre returned to WWE with the NXT brand back in 2017. And the match that they had was, I believe, at a WCPW show, which was Walt Culture Wrestling. You guys remember Walt Culture Wrestling? Yeah. They had a match at Walt Culture Wrestling. And the full match is actually on YouTube. And if you look at the comment section, it is flooded with the recent comments, of course, the recent mention of that match via Drew McIntyre, so you'll love to see it. Drew McIntyre asks Cody, you remember what he told him after that match? He said that he was going to be a future world champion, and he did become a world champion. He's won the world championship twice, and he will tell him in front of the entire world, it doesn't matter, you just keep working. He will be the first member of his family to win that championship, and he is going to finish his story. But not before I finish mine, says Drew McIntyre. And then Cody asks, is that so? He's declared for the Royal Rumble. Of course, you, Drew, have declared for the Royal Rumble, and he is right. He could win, but also Jey Uso could win. A man who is very hungry and who wants to solidify his legacy, CM Punk, could win. He doesn't plan on letting that happen. They both won the Royal Rumble. You can't count anybody out, Drew. And Drew says, it's about him, and it's about me. He says he will give him some advice. Just be yourself, man. Just be yourself. You look like you're running for office. Why are you wearing a suit? You just don't smile all the time, because I did it too, says Drew McIntyre. He felt, even when he was angry, he needed to be that leader. Wipe it off and just be the real Cody. And then Cody replies. He says that he assures him that this isn't an act. He smiles when he comes out because it is what he loves. He appreciates the opportunities that he has been giving. And the difference right now is that I am thankful and I am grateful and I relish my second chance, says Cody. And he is just standing here complaining about his second chance. Drew asks, why would he bring Jey Uso to Raw knowing the trouble he causes? Or what about endorsing CM Punk? You know exactly what he is like. And he mentions Damian Priest trying to cash in and almost causing him his match. So he is standing in his way. And like Punk learned last week, if you step in my way, you will get eaten alive. And when I'm 100%, when he isn't, when he is per 100%, he isn't what's best for business because he is the damn business. And at WrestleMania, the story belongs to Drew McIntyre. And then Cody replies, he is always if that idiot Priest, if that horrible Jey Uso. It's always that with Drew McIntyre. It's if. He thinks we are the same, but no. He's ribbing with grievances, and he wants that for him. But the difference is, when he wonders or speculates that he will finish the story, he doesn't look at him. He just looks at two places. He looks at right here, which is the ring, and he looks right there, pointing at the crowd, says Cody Rhodes. And if you want to settle this at the Royal Rumble, you will give him something else to complain about. And he also keeps mentioning that last match that they had between, me and Drew. Let me ask you something, Drew McIntyre. Who won? And then Cody Rhodes leaves, mic drops, and the segment ends. This was a great segment on all levels. A phenomenal segment. Cody Rhodes, man. Everybody talks about Cody Rhodes, bro. Cody Rhodes is such a good spokesman. He can give you the best promo with the smallest of information. That's how good Cody Rhodes is. Drew McIntyre, of course, he's pissed off that all these bad things are happening to him. He keeps losing, and he's complaining back and forth. But let's look at the bigger picture here. Last week, we had a great segment with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. This week, we have a great segment with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. Next week, we are going to have a awesome segment, and I assume it's definitely going to be awesome. We are going to have an awesome segment with Cody Rhodes and CM Punk face-to-face. CM Punk and Cody Rhodes are going to go face-to-face. And I'm telling you right now, shit's about to get real. Because, of course, Cody Rhodes, if you guys do not know, is friends with guys that CM Punk absolutely hates. and he has had beef with throughout the past year. I don't need to mention their names because I already know who they are, and you already know who they are. I don't need to mention their names, but some of the stuff that's going to take place next week is going to be very interesting, some of the things that are going to be said. But what makes this segment so good, and what makes segments like this so good? It's the fact that WWE is building up the Royal Rumble the way the Royal Rumble needs to be, built. What I like about this year's Royal Rumble, and I'm just saying this from a creative standpoint, WWE is in a position right now from a creative standpoint when it comes to the Royal Rumble that literally anybody could win the Royal Rumble. You got a guy like Gunther that could easily win the Royal Rumble. Cody could win the Royal Rumble. CM Punk could win the Royal Rumble. Heck, I'll go as far as to say maybe Jey Uso, even though it's unlikely, Jey Uso could win the Royal Rumble. They are really stacking this Royal Rumble very, very, very well. And they're creating that perception that anything can happen at the Royal Rumble. And that is exactly what they need to do. What I like about WWE nowadays is the fact that they have a whole cast of characters, of baby faces and heels that, again, the audience can just gravitate towards. But not only that, those baby faces and heels, or especially baby faces, are super over with the audience that they could go on and easily win the Royal Rumble and there'd be no problems whatsoever. But it narrows down to only 3 people: Cody, Gunther, and CM Punk. And I'll talk about Gunther later on, because Gunther, was in the conversation about what could happen at the Royal Rumble. A year ago, I would have probably told you Gunther's going to win the Royal Rumble. Keep in mind, Gunther was number 1 at the Royal Rumble, or I believe number 2 at the Royal Rumble. No, he was number 30 at the Rumble. Never mind. I completely forgot. Holy shit. No, he was number 1 at the Rumble. Number 1 or 2. He faced off with James in the beginning, and he lasted all the way till the end. But Gunther could easily win. Cody could easily win. What WWE is doing right now is super smart. They're building towards the Royal Rumble the right way, and they're creating this perception that, hey, anybody can win. Because remember, for years when Vince McMahon was running the Royal Rumble, you kind of already knew who was going to win the Royal Rumble. Even last year when Triple H, was running last year and he was doing his first Royal Rumble, you kind of knew that Cody was going to win. But at the same time, you had a guy like Gunther come in and you were like, holy shit, there's no way Cody Rhodes is going to win the Royal Rumble. No way. But there's a lot of different possibilities about this year's Royal Rumble, which makes this year's Rumble very interesting. And it makes WrestleMania season very interesting. So WWE is doing everything right when it comes to building up towards the Royal Rumble, and I absolutely love that. Moving on, we got R-Truth backstage. R-Truth, of course, Damian Priest comes in. We see R-Truth selling Judgment Day merch in the parking lot. And Damian Priest is saying that this is embarrassing, but then Truth gives him a stack of cash. And he says every member of Judgment Day is going to get a cut. And Truth asks if Dom or is Nick okay? And Priest says, sell the merchandise. Just don't be too loud about it. And about tonight's tag team match, just don't tag in. Of course, it's going to be Damian Priest and Finn Balor to take on The Miz and R-Truth, who is unofficially a part of the Judgment Day. Of course, he beats JD McDonagh, and JD McDonagh is technically out of the Judgment Day, but JD McDonagh is still hanging around with the Judgment Day. Oh, and by the way, where is JD McDonagh's cut? He ended up getting no cut whatsoever. Moving on. We got a great opening tag team match as we got JD McDonagh, ironically, and Dominik Mysterio taking on Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa DIY. This was a great tag team match on all levels. I loved this tag team match. Of course, a lot of people have been very critical about DIY and the crowd reactions that they have been receiving throughout the past couple of months. Honestly, slowly, I do believe that the crowd is starting to get behind DIY. It's a little slow, but it's getting there. So really, if you really take your time when it comes to DIY, a tag team like DIY, the crowd will eventually start to react, and it showed in this match. Gargano and JD start. We get the head scissors by Gargano. Dominik Mysterio interferes, and he takes him to the outside. Ciampa then goes for the corkscrew on Dominik. After that, we get a tope. Once we're back from commercial break, Ciampa is working on JD McDonagh. Both men fight it out. Gargano makes the tag, and then DIY goes for the double team. And then we get a clothesline by Ciampa when Gargano sends him to Ciampa. After that, we get an elbow by Gargano. But then Dominik, who isn't the legal man, interferes. JD McDonagh regains control, but then Dominik goes for repeated rights and lefts. JD tags back in, but then we get a side headlock by Dominik. Gargano tries to fight back, but then Gargano fights back. We get a roll-up by Dominik, or I should say Gargano rolls up Dominik, and then he hits a kick. And then Ciampa makes the tag, but then the referee does not see the tag, so the tag is not really legal. And then Judgment Day end up ganging up on Johnny Gargano. We get a kick by Gargano, but then JD McDonagh gets taken to the outside. Gargano goes for the spear off the ropes on Dominik. Gargano then tries to tag in, but then McDonagh grabs the boot of Ciampa. But then he hits a dropkick on Dominik. We get a cover by Dominik and a near fall. Once we're back from commercial break, Ciampa is in control over the Judgment Day, but then he hits a double clothesline. And no, I'm not talking about Adam Cole and MJF. And then he goes for the backdrop on McDonagh, and then we get a reverse DDT by Tommaso Ciampa. And then we get a cover end and near fall. Ciampa then ends up going for the fairy tale ending. But then JD McDonagh escapes. Dominik tags in, but then Dominik and JD both pick up Ciampa. Gargano interferes, but then we get a roll-up by Ciampa and a near fall. We then get a right forearm by Ciampa, and then Gargano tags in. We then get the double team by Gargano, and then we get a cover into near fall when JD McDonagh interferes. We then get a headbutt by JD. Gargano goes for the super kick. Dominik goes for a super kick of his own. Gargano then hits a lariat on Dominik. Ciampa makes the tag. JD tags in. We get a Spanish fly by JD McDonagh, and then he hits a moonsault off the top. We get a cover into near fall when Gargano hits a super kick. Dominik comes in, he hits a drop kick, and then we get a 619 interfered when Ciampa ends up going for the running knee. McDonagh goes for the roll-up, but then Ciampa ends up hitting the DDT. Gargano tags in, he hits a super kick, followed by a running knee combination by DIY. After that, we get a cover, and DIY gets the win. Overall, this was a great opening match. Everything about it was exactly how it needed to be. Phenomenal match on all levels. DIY is starting to get that crowd reaction that they really needed, because throughout the past couple of months, they haven't really been getting that crowd reaction. And JD McDonagh and Dominik are as good as always. Moving on, we got Chelsea Green and Piper Niven taking on Indi Hartwell and Candice LeRae. It was a pretty normal tag team match, but the babyfaces ended up getting the win. The heel start, we get a shoulder breaker by Piper Niven. Green tags in. We get a slap by Chelsea Green. Piper drops Indi down, but then we get a cover by Green and a near fall. We then get a boot by Indi Hartwell, and then Chelsea Green drags Indi to the outside, but then Indi regains control. Later on in the match, we get a code breaker on Chelsea Green, but then she lands onto the back of Piper Niven. We get a double team by both babyfaces. After that, we get a cover and a near fall when Chelsea Green interferes. We then get a spine buster by Indi Hartwell, and then we get a slam by Piper Niven, and then we get a crossbody missed by Piper, and then Chelsea makes the tag. She doesn't realize that Candice LeRae is the legal woman, and then Candice LeRae ends up going for a springboard, a second rope springboard lion salt. And after that, we get a cover, and Candice and Indi Hartwell get the win. Overall, great stuff. There's a lot of problems, and they are still, even now, even though Triple H is running things, there's still a lot of problems with the women's tag team division. But one thing I will say is that right now is like you got guys like Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, who are a legitimate tag team. Candice LeRae and Indi Hartwell, they have history, so you can say that they are a legitimate tag team. And you got a team like Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, who are also a legitimate tag team as of now. And we can all agree, and I've always said this, the character work of Chelsea Green has been phenomenal, has been absolutely phenomenal. But I will say there still needs to be a lot of work when it comes to the women's tag team division, because at the end of the day, man, there's no sense of direction at all. They're not really treated with the importance that they really should be treated, if that makes any sense. Even though Kaden Carter and Katana Chance are doing everything in their power to really make it work, and they are making it work, but at the same time, it's the tag teams that are outside of Kaden Carter and Katana Chance that are not really getting, I don't want to say as much focus, because I'm just purely wrong on that. I'm just saying they're not really treated with the importance, if that makes any sense. I'm not really as invested in the women's tag team division. We got a video package of Nia Jax. Meanwhile, we got the Judgment Day backstage. Damian Priest comes in and says he has an issue with Drew running his mouth. But then Priest says, look what he earns for the crew. And he says this is his cut. JD asks if he get a cut, but Priest says his name is not on the shirt, so I assume you're not going to get a cut. And he says, I don't know about it, man. Which is hilarious. Moving on. we got Gunther, the current Intercontinental Champion, the longest reigning Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, the Ring General, the Ring General, or the Ring General, Gunther. He says, we're 2 weeks away from the Royal Rumble, and he can feel the desperation around this place. He can literally smell the desperation. Since we're in Arkansas, of course, when he was away and he was observing, he saw all of his fellow superstars every week arguing about who will win the Royal Rumble, who will win WrestleMania. He had to come here and he had to remind everyone about one thing. Last year, he entered the Royal Rumble as number 1, and he made it all the way until the end, and he went 1 inch from winning the Royal Rumble, and he lasted longer in the Rumble than any man in history. So this year, the Ring General, the longest reigning Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion of all time, is going to win the Royal Rumble and main event WrestleMania. Now, this first half of the promo I loved. Again, they're making the Royal Rumble seem... they're making the Royal Rumble have a sense of anything can happen, and anybody could legitimately win this Royal Rumble. Gunther, at this stage of the game, a couple of months ago, before CM Punk made his return, I would have easily told you Gunther could easily win the Royal Rumble. Gunther's gonna win the Royal Rumble. I could have easily said that. And he's still not a bad pick, even though CM Punk is there. But now that CM Punk is back, and they've already planted the seeds with Seth Rollins and CM Punk, and that is the rumored main event for Night 1 of WrestleMania, and that is the perfect main event for Night 1 of WrestleMania, CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Gunther should not win the Royal Rumble at this point. Now that CM Punk is back, Gunther should not win the Royal Rumble. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, because in my eyes, I'd rather wait, and I'm thinking ahead right here. In my eyes, if Gunther had won the Royal Rumble, think about this, he wouldn't have gone after Roman Reigns. He would have gone after Seth Rollins. Think about this. If Punk wins the Royal Rumble, just think hypothetically. If Punk won the Royal Rumble, which I definitely do see happening, he goes after Seth Rollins. Think about this. He goes after Seth Rollins. Gunther is able to have his match against Brock Lesnar that WWE wants so badly, and that is definitely in the cards for this year's WrestleMania. Looking at it right now, I would love to see a match between Brock Lesnar and Gunther. I think it'd be a 10-minute slugfest, and a damn good one, by the way. Probably even longer, but it'd be a damn good match. Now think about this. With a Brock Lesnar-Gunther match, right? You pass on by that. You pass that after WrestleMania. Would you rather have Gunther go after the World Heavyweight title, or would you rather have Gunther go after the WWE title? Because think about this. If Cody finishes his story, think about this, and I'm thinking ahead here. If Cody finishes his story, think about this. If he finishes his story, I already know who's going to beat Cody Rhodes for that world title. I think it's obvious, right? It's Gunther. Imagine, Cody has a lengthy title reign after WrestleMania, a damn good title reign, a babyface that people can believe in. And then all of a sudden he runs into Gunther and he gets slaughtered by Gunther. That's the perfect way to do things. I'd rather have Gunther go after the WWE title than the World Heavyweight title. But that is just me thinking ahead. So Gunther should not win the Royal Rumble. Even though I would advocate it before Punk returned, now that Punk is back, I think we already know who's going to win the Royal Rumble, and it is, of course, none other than CM Punk. But after that, Gunther points to Ludwig Kaiser, and he points to Ludwig Kaiser, and he shows us a video package of what happened last week about him beating the crap out of Kofi Kingston. And Ludwig says that, there, he loves to see that. He showed a side of him that he always showed: grit, confidence, and courage. His point? Well done. And then he gives him a hug. Xavier Woods comes out, and then, of course, him and Kaiser have a problem, states Xavier Woods. He took 10 steps too far last week, and he talked to Kofi, and he is the reason that he isn't here tonight. Unfortunately for him, Ludwig, he is here, and he's here to extract a pound of flesh on him, and he challenges him to a match, and he can step up and accept, or he has to ask his daddy for permission. Gunther smiles, and he looks at Ludwig Kaiser, and he offers him the microphone. We get a bunch of "Who's your daddy?" chants by the crowd. And after you've seen what I did to Kofi, says Ludwig Kaiser. You stand here and dare challenge me. Woods, what he did to his friend last week, or what I did to your friend last week, was nothing compared to what I'm going to do to you tonight. And I will take your head too tonight, and I accept. So Ludwig Kaiser accepts the challenge. And overall, man, it is going to be a barn burner, right? It's going to be a barn burner of a match. Real quick, we're going to be going to, I don't want to say a quick commercial break, but my laptop is actually about to die. So let me actually go ahead and charge that real quick. Alrighty. All right, we are back. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. There was a little bit of technical difficulties right here on the Raw review. But, yeah, man, my laptop was about to die, or my computer was about to die. And it was actually at 11%, and it was draining fast, and I didn't want to, kind of mess up the entire review. But moving on, we got Xavier Woods versus Ludwig Kaiser. The match doesn't start because Woods goes straight for the attack on Kaiser. The referee comes in. We're back from commercial break. The match begins. Woods is in control over Kaiser, but then we get a lariat by Kaiser. Kaiser hits repeated right hands, and then Kaiser goes for an overhand chop. And then we get a series of chop exchanges by both men, but then Kaiser just goes after Woods with a series of rights and lefts. Woods goes for a crossbody, and then we get a cover and a near fall. After that, Kaiser ends up going for an uppercut, and then we get a cover and a kick out. After that, Kaiser goes for a kick onto the back of Woods, but then Kaiser screams that he will take his head. And then Woods goes after repeated rights and lefts. Kaiser goes for an uppercut, dropping Woods off the top, and then Kaiser works on the head of Xavier Woods. And then after that, he drives his boot onto the face of Woods, and then we get a cover and a kick out. We get a chop by Woods, and then Woods takes out Kaiser, but then Woods continues on with the series of chops. Woods gets taken to the apron, and then we get a kick by Woods, but then Woods runs into a right hand. Then he follows up with a clothesline by Kaiser. Kaiser sends Wood shoulder first to the ring post, but then Kaiser goes for a running dropkick. Once we're back from commercial break, Kaiser is in control. Woods goes for a DDT on Kaiser, but then both men go for a series of chop exchanges on one another. Woods then clotheslines Kaiser to the outside, and then he hits a dropkick on Kaiser, sending him over the announce table. Kaiser then throws him, basically tries to do the same thing that he did to Kofi Kingston, and he throws an office chair like he did last week, but this time Woods ducks. Woods proceeds to fight off Kaiser, but then he hits a chair on Kaiser, which causes a DQ. Woods then grabs a steel chair, and then Kaiser hits the enziguri onto the head of Woods with the chair, which then leads to Kaiser taking Woods and then dragging Woods to the steel steps. He runs towards Woods, but then Woods hits a drop kick, and then Woods grabs the steel steps and he misses. He tries to throw the steel steps to Kaiser, but then Kaiser escapes, and what happens is Kaiser runs away towards the crowd like a coward, and that leaves Xavier Woods in the ringside area alone. Overall, I love what they're doing with Ludwig Kaiser. Giovanni Vinci a couple of weeks ago suffered a legitimate injury. I think that was 2 weeks ago on Raw. That is why, Ludwig Kaiser is kind of doing his own singles thing, and I really appreciate that. I mean, Ludwig Kaiser, I love what they're doing with Ludwig Kaiser. I think the work that they have been doing with him has been great, and they're really making him like an actual menace, man. They have been booking him like a menace recently, and I hope they continue on with that. But what's going to be very interesting is we do not know how long Giovanni Vinci is going to be out for. So once Giovanni Vinci comes back, we're going to have to wait and see what they do with Giovanni Vinci as well, considering they kind of have this new attitude going on with Ludwig Kaiser, and then all of a sudden Giovanni Vinci comes back. What are you going to do with Giovanni Vinci? But nonetheless, this was a pretty good segment. Bronson Reed is backstage. This was kind of random out of nowhere, and this is probably my least favorite thing that happened on Raw. Says, there is a man right now who holds a championship in WWE. He doesn't realize that sooner rather than later, it will belong to Big Bronson Reed. And then we go straight to commercial break. I could care less because, damn well they ain't going to do nothing with Bronson Reed. Moving on. We got a backstage interview with Xavier Woods. He says, you saw what he did last week to Kofi Kingston, but then Kaiser out of nowhere attacks him. And then Jey Uso comes in. And then he faces off with Ludwig Kaiser, and then Kaiser retreats. I would assume it could possibly set up a match with Jey Uso and Ludwig Kaiser. Who knows? We then get a video package. Seth Rollins taking on Jinder Mahal. Yes, a video package of Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal. You know, don't hinder the Jinder, says the fans on social media. It's crazy how within a week, everybody was complaining on Monday night last week. They were complaining about how we're getting a Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal match. Think about this. Everybody was complaining that we were going to be getting a Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal match. Then the next day, when Tony Khan was doing all of his tweets about Jinder Mahal and how he hasn't won a match in like 2 years, Tony Khan, with the series of tweets, turned Jinder Mahal babyface. That's hilarious, in my opinion. But I was one of those people that wasn't really excited for this match, and a lot of people were hyping this match way too much. Way too much. It was not a bad match, but it wasn't worth hyping for, because damn well they're not going to have Jinder Mahal win the World Heavyweight title. Not a chance. So the fact that people were hyping Jinder Mahal up is hilarious to me. And after the match was over, I was like, you know what? Tune into the Superstation on TBS on Wednesday nights to watch Samoa Joe versus Hook. Okay, I'm more excited about Samoa Joe and Hook than Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal. I'm sorry. I don't know what y'all people are smoking, but that's just my opinion. But let's move on. We got Akira Tozowa taking on Ivar of the Viking Raiders. Relatively short match. Ivar is calling him a little man, and then Tozowa goes for a spinning kick. Ivar goes for a pump-up spine buster, but then Tozowa hits a DDT. Tozowa then gets caught into a spinning slam, and then he ends up hitting the crossbody. Ivar goes to the top, and then Maxine is up on the apron trying to go for the distraction. But then Tozowa goes for the sunset flip powerbomb, and then he goes for the roll-up, but then we get a cover, and Tozowa actually pins Ivar. After the match, Valhalla attacks Maxine. Then Ivar hits a spinning kick on Tozowa, and then he hits a headbutt on Valhalla. Or I should say Valhalla hits a headbutt. After that, Ivar drags Tozowa. He goes to the top, and Ivar hits the moonsault, leaving down Alpha Academy. Meanwhile, Alpha Academy is backstage with the Creed brothers. Gable says that he is proud of him. And then he says he will teach Ivar a lesson next week. And Ivy Nile of the Creed brothers says that she will talk to Adam Pearce for a match against Valhalla next week on Raw. Here's another segment that was very interesting. In our next segment, we're going to have the Women's World Champion. Yes, the Eradicator. Mommy herself, Rhea Ripley. We get a bunch of mommy chants by the crowd. And by the way, this semi-new setup that they have, every time when they make their entrance, I don't know why, it looks a little more underground, and I kind of like that. But we get a bunch of mommy chants by the crowd. Rhea Ripley cuts her promo, and she says that she is so sick and tired of people like Nia Jax running their mouth and claiming that this is their division. But this is her division. That's why she has this championship. And take this as a warning, whoever wins the Royal Rumble, says Rhea Ripley. If you decide to waste your WrestleMania, then I would advise you to choose me. Choose someone else if you do not want to see that happen. But it will end up like it did last year, because mommy is always on top. And then Becky Lynch comes out. Both women face off. And she cuts this very good promo. And she says, so here we stand. Two very different people with a similar journey. Two women from four lands that dreamt of coming here and being the best to ever do it. Both spent years trying to figure it out. Both went from being afterthoughts at WrestleMania to becoming faces of the industry the next. But there is a difference. One of them went on to win the main event of WrestleMania. The other did not. And there's another difference. One of them has a natural ability in this ring, and a finesse that is unmatched. They have the strength of a bear, and the other has a heart of a lion. But here we stand, the two of the very best to ever do it. But there's this thought and a voice in her head, and it's asking and questioning and saying to her, she thinks she might be better than her, but she needs to prove that she isn't. And to do that, she needs to take the title from her. And to do that, she needs to win the Royal Rumble. She needs to point at that sign, declare at WrestleMania, and it will be Mommy versus the Man. And then Rhea Ripley replies, there is one other person that wants her to win the Royal Rumble, and that is her. And she says, see you at WrestleMania. And then Rhea Ripley leaves. So yeah, that was that segment. Overall, what are my thoughts on Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch? I think it's obvious to ourselves after this promo took place. I think it's obvious that they planted the seeds for a Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch match at WrestleMania. And am I upset about that? Absolutely not. There is only two logical choices, especially coming after this segment when it comes to who should win the Women's Royal Rumble. And it only comes down to two women. It comes down to either Becky Lynch or it comes down to Bayley. Because Bayley over on the SmackDown side of things is doing her own thing with Damage Control, and Damage Control is kind of going to screw her over. They're really planting the seeds of Damage Control trying to screw over Bayley. That is exactly what they are doing over on SmackDown with Bayley and Damage Control. Over on Raw, you got Rhea Ripley being dominant as the Women's World Champion, and she doesn't really have a lot of credible challengers. And the only credible challenger that I could think of is Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is really the only one that I can think of. And a Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch match is a match that I definitely would want to see. I think the build-up for that match would be great. I think the build-up for that match would be very, very, very good. But the question is, who wins the Royal Rumble? Becky or Bayley? Honestly, you can't have Bayley win the Royal Rumble and then you can, plant the seeds for an Io versus Bayley match. Or you could have a scenario of Damage Control turning on Bayley at the Royal Rumble, which then leads to, maybe an Elimination Chamber in which you got Bayley versus Io for the Women's World title. Who knows? I'm just pulling stuff out of my head right now. But again, I think a Becky versus Rhea match is definitely the way to go. And I'm definitely curious to see what happens. And I think it's obvious that we're definitely going to be seeing a Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch match at WrestleMania. So it's interesting. And I'm here for it. Absolutely. This was a great segment. Moving on. Seth Rollins is in a backstage interview. Yes, Seth frickin' Rollins. Seth Rollins, he says, it's freezing cold, but he welcomes us all to Monday Night Rollins. He's been the World Heavyweight Champion for well over 200 days, and with every single title defense, he gets stronger and better the way he sees it. And he needs to continue to be who he is, which is a fighting champion, a workhorse champion. And as for Jinder, this ain't our first dance. But this Jinder is different than the one that he faced, of course, in order to become the inaugural NXT champion all the way back in 2012. Jinder Mahal is a former WWE champion. This is the best version of Jinder Mahal, a deserving Jinder Mahal. And Jackie, of course, the person that is interviewing Seth Rollins, he wouldn't have it any other way because he is a visionary. He is a revolutionary, and he is Seth frickin' Rollins. We then have The Miz and R-Truth taking on Finn Balor and Damian Priest, who are the current tag team champions. This match was pretty entertaining. There's one thing that WWE knows how to do is take something very stupid and turning it into television gold. And that is exactly what they're doing with R-Truth. R-Truth and the Judgment Day, whoever came up with that storyline with R-Truth and the Judgment Day, bro, give those people a raise. Please give those people a raise because they absolutely deserve it. But Truth is making his entrance behind the Judgment Day, which is funny as hell. Then Truth starts the match, right? And he drops all of the money he has. He has cash on him, and he just drops all of the cash. And he gives it all to Finn. He's trying to get his cut. He's giving Finn his cut. And he gives it all to Priest and Dominik. Meanwhile, JD is on the apron, and he's like, where's my cut? And Truth is like, you are not a member of the Judgment Day. And then Miz is on the apron, and he's just confused. Meanwhile, the match starts. Balor fights off Truth, and then we get a right hand knocking down Balor. Truth says that I am so sorry, and then Balor goes for a takedown. And then he stomps after Truth. Once we're back from commercial break, Judgment Day is in control. We get an enziguri by Truth, Truth is still the legal man, but then Miz makes the tag. We get repeated clotheslines by the Miz, and then he sends Balor to the apron. Priest gets sent over to the announce table, and then we get a knee by Miz. After that, we go for the double knees on Balor. We get a cover by Miz and a near fall. After that, we get a clothesline in the corner by Miz, and then we get a tag by Truth. And then we get the scissors kick by Truth on Balor, and then he proceeds to take out Dominik. And then he takes out JD, who is, of course, not a part of Judgment Day, according to R-Truth. And if you think about it, it's kind of official. Priest then takes out The Miz, but then Truth is behind Priest. Priest then turns around, and he asks R-Truth, what happened to this, bro? What happened to us, bro? Everything was going so good until you fucked it up. And then Balor rolls him up, but then Truth counters into a heel kick. Then Priest ends up hitting the South of Heaven chokeslam. Balor goes for the cover, and we get a cover on the Judgment Day, get the win. And Priest looked kind of disappointed after he hit the South of Heaven on R-Truth. Even though, R-Truth has been busting his balls recently, Priest looks kind of like, damn, I kind of fucked that up, did I? So yeah, the Judgment Day get the win over the awesome Truth. Jinder Mahal is backstage, and of course, he is, he's getting himself absolute clarity for the modern day Maharaja. A 7-year drought. The whispers are pouring in, and it's making him the most talked about star of 2024. I wonder why he's becoming the most talked about star in 2024. There's only one person that made him that way, and it ain't WWE, I'll tell you that right now. It's Mr. TK. But his focus is singular. 12 years in the making, narrowed down to one night. Tonight, everybody is unified when he beats Seth Rollins, and when he beats Seth Rollins to become the World Heavyweight Champion. We then get a Shinsuke Nakamura segment. He says, last week, of course, he lost to Cody Rhodes, and it made him angry, and it left him hungry. Cody, you should keep your eye open because the story doesn't end until I say it ends. Now I am hungrier towards the Royal Rumble. I am a hungry Shinsuke, a dangerous Shinsuke. 29 other men, all hoping to make it to the top. 28 men, or 29 men, I should say, that I will feast on their dreams. So Shinsuke Nakamura is declaring himself for the Royal Rumble. Could we see Shinsuke Nakamura maybe eliminate Cody Rhodes? You never know. One thing I like about this year's Royal Rumble, and I definitely do see WWE doing, is many different storylines intertwining with one another. And many different storyline angles playing out during the Royal Rumble. There's a lot of that stuff that happened last year at the Royal Rumble. I definitely do see that being the case this year at the Royal Rumble, so I'm definitely excited to see that. Moving on, we got and I hate to be that guy, but we have a nothing match. A match nobody cared about. The crowd was absolutely dead for. Probably the weakest match on the entire card. Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark to take on Tegan Nox and Natalya. This match was really nothing. Shayna Baszler and, Zoe Stark ended up getting the win. Overall, it was kind of a boring match to say the least. Again, the crowd was just absolutely dead during this match, so I'm not really going to go through this match. This match served nothing of importance. With all due respect to those women, this match served nothing of importance at all. Moving on, we got our main event. We got Seth Rollins taking on Jinder Mahal for the World Heavyweight Championship. A match that was made last week on Raw. When Jinder Mahal, of course, faced off against Seth Rollins. And if you guys do not recall, this was roughly a week after Jinder Mahal got buried by The Rock. And, of course, The Rock declared himself, didn't declare himself, but he basically teased a future match with Roman Reigns, right? And that was what everybody was talking about. And then, of course, he had that segment with Seth Rollins, and then the day later, Tony Khan goes on his little Twitter machine, and he tweets about Jinder Mahal, how he gets a title shot, and nobody's complaining, and then all of a sudden, Hook gets a title shot, and then everybody complains. That sparked a lot of backlash on Tony Khan's end. Everybody on social media was going after Tony Khan's neck. Everybody. Now, I will say this, and I said this on WrestleHavoc Daily. Look, from a fan's perspective, it's hilarious just to see all of the outrage. And it's hilarious to see how Tony Khan immediately turned Jinder Mahal babyface in one night. But I will say this. I'll tell you this. Everybody was complaining the night before that Jinder was getting a title shot against Seth Rollins. Everybody was complaining. And then all of a sudden, a day later, just because Tony Khan did a couple of tweets, everybody was like, haha, I'm so excited for this match. It's going to be an amazing match, guys. It's going to be an amazing match. I'm going to ask you this. Coming out of this match, were you disappointed that Jinder Mahal lost? Because I swear to God, you had a lot of people that genuinely wanted Jinder Mahal to win the World Heavyweight title. I shit you not. There were times in this match, and look, was the match bad? No, it was not. But it was nothing to hype about. There was nothing hypeable. That is even a word. There was nothing hypeable about this match. There was nothing to hype about when it comes to this match. This was just a generic title match. That's it. I wasn't one of those people that were on the Jinder Mahal bandwagon. I'm sorry, I'm not on the Jinder Mahal bandwagon. He's a great wrestler, and he's great with what he's given, but I'm not the biggest Jinder Mahal fan. I'm sorry. I genuinely believe that Jinder Mahal was one of the worst WWE champions of all time. Okay? He really was. People are saying, oh man, remember when Jinder Mahal was the WWE champion? Stop. Those were terrible times. Terrible times. But you had people hype up this match. And people were genuinely upset that Jinder Mahal lost. And I'm like, are y'all mad that Jinder Mahal lost? There were times in this match, and a lot of content creators on social media said the same thing. There were times, some of the near falls, when Jinder Mahal hit the Colossus, near the end of that match towards Seth Rollins, it damn near gave us all a heart attack. Because I'm like, there's no freaking way that Jinder Mahal is going to win this match. There's no way. No way whatsoever. But thank the Lord it didn't. But let's go over this match, man. Because, I mean, this was a nothing match. Like, I don't want to say, I take that back. That was not a nothing match. This is just a match that was just not worth hyping on. Like, I wasn't hyped about this match whatsoever. It wasn't a bad match. It was a fine match. But there was nothing to hype about when it comes to this match. I am sorry. I'm more excited for Samoa Joe versus Hook. Even though Hook is going to lose that match, it's going to make Hook look great. I guarantee you, Jinder Mahal is not going to do anything else throughout the next couple of months. Just watch. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But knowing WWE, they're not going to do anything with Jinder Mahal. Let's be real. Jinder Mahal comes out with Indi. And when was the last time we saw Indi on TV? I completely forgot. Remember those video packages a couple of years ago? Veer is coming to Monday Night Raw. And they've been airing those video packages for months. And WWE didn't even realize, oh shit, we had this guy on our way to Raw, and we still haven't booked him in a debut match, and it's been like 5 months that we've been airing those video packages. You remember those video packages? Veer is coming to Monday Night Raw. Hilarious. Goes to show you how stupid WWE was. And I'm not talking about the current regime. I'm talking about the previous regime, Vince McMahon and everybody else. They were that stupid that they completely forgot that they had to prepare for a debut for somebody, that being Veer. Veer is coming to Monday Night Raw, ladies and gentlemen. But Mahal starts off in control. Seth gets sent to the outside. We get a boot by Jinder Mahal. After that, Seth goes for a series of chops. Seth pushes Jinder to the steel steps, and then Seth goes for a running knee on the outside. Then he sends Jinder back into the ring. But Damian Priest, yes, Senor Money in the Bank, he comes out. Rollins has a concerned look on his face because he has Indi on the outside. And Damian Priest comes out. Once we're back from commercial break, Jinder applies an abdominal stretch. Once we're back, we get a back elbow by Jinder. We get repeated knee strikes by Jinder Mahal. And then he continues on with the abdominal stretch. We get a clothesline by Rollins. Both men goes for a series of strike exchanges. And then we get a rolling elbow. Then a discus clothesline by Seth Rollins. Rollins gets taken to the apron, but then he goes to the top. He hits a high crossbody, and then we get a cover and a near fall. We then get a super kick by Rollins, and then we get a springboard senton by Rollins, and then a springboard moonsault by Rollins, but then Jinder picks up Rollins. Rollins then reverses it into the Falcon Arrow. Then Jinder goes for a kick. Rollins goes for a kick. Rollins hits the pedigree, but then Seth's knee gives out. We get a cover into near fall when Indi gets Jinder's foot on the bottom rope. After that, Rollins goes to the top. He takes out Indi, and then we get a splash off the top missed by Rollins. Meanwhile, Damian Priest gets up from where he was sitting down, but then Drew McIntyre comes in. He faces off with Damian Priest, but then both men brawl. Priest sends him to the post, but then Jinder picks up Rollins. He He drives his knee on Seth Rollins, but then we get a cover and a near fall. We get repeated right hands by Jinder, but then Jinder has a chair. Then Rollins takes him out, but then Indi's chair hits Rollins with the briefcase. And you remember how I talked about how it made a lot of content creators and a lot of fans almost damn near get a heart attack? This was the moment. Jinder goes for the Coloss, and we get a cover and a close-ass near fall. Seth counters Jinder, and he ends up hitting the stomp, and we get a cover, and Seth Rollins wins and retains the World Heavyweight Championship. Overall, again, not a bad match. It was a decent match. It was a fine match, but again, nothing to hype about. I do not know why people were hyping this match up the way it was. You knew damn well Jinder Mahal was not going to win this match. You literally had people believe Jinder Mahal was going to be winning this match. Now, I thought, and I even tweeted this out before the match even started, that, hey, we could possibly be seeing Damian Priest cash in his Money in the Bank. And even if he did cash in his Money in the Bank, and he successfully cashed in his Money in the Bank, his title reign wouldn't last long whatsoever. We still do not know the nature of what they're going to be doing with Damian Priest and the Money in the Bank. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens further on down the line. But nonetheless, fine match, fine main event, but nothing to hype about. It was an all right match, and that is it. This match wasn't amazing. It was fine. It was fine. No, don't hype about this. And don't hype about Jinder Mahal because you know damn well WWE ain't going to do anything with Jinder Mahal. I'm sorry. He's not going to do it. And don't even get me started. Once the ratings come out, I do not want to hear people say, oh, Jinder Mahal was the highest rated segment on the show. No, he was the highest rated segment on the show because Seth Rollins was there. Just like when The Rock was there. The reason why it was the highest rated segment on the show is because The Rock was there. Okay? My God, what is wrong with people, bro? Like, it's so funny, bro. It's so funny, bro. The wrestling community is absolutely hilarious. But look, Jinder Mahal is great with what he is given. I don't hate Jinder Mahal. I'm just saying, bro, stop with all this Jinder Mahal hype. Please stop. All right. That was my Raw review from January 15th, 2024. Overall thoughts on the show. It was a pretty good show. I enjoyed the show for what it was. It was a decent show. The show flowed pretty well. Of course, all eyes are set on the Royal Rumble, January 27th. The possibilities are endless, man. WWE is really hyping up the Royal Rumble, as they should be. Of course, the Royal Rumble kicks off the road to WrestleMania, and it's going to be very interesting as we head near to the Royal Rumble and, of course, as we head towards WrestleMania. But yeah, that was my Raw review from January 15th, 2024. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I'm on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc channel in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all later. Peace.